and insight is what is the jumping off point for a creative idea. Music is always really like part of who I am at my core. I'm really obsessed with like preserving like underground culture. Trends reveal where people's hearts are at.
Okay, so I feel like we met through, I guess, the agency space. But I feel like I saw your work, and I feel like maybe we might work together once, but like I always just, I guess, admired like the brand strategy work that you do. So I know that you maybe go by a different title now. Like what title would you, I guess, call yourself?
Yeah, I mean, brand strategist is typically like what it was before, but then when I started working at Crown and Conquer, the most recent agency I was at, I was a creative strategist there and got to kind of expand my skill set a little bit more. And so I was like, okay, I think after all of my experience, I've really like kind of leveled up all these different skill sets, which is really just building brands. And so I was like, okay, I was talking with a mentor who kind of has worked everywhere, and I look up to her a lot, and she was actually helping me rewrite my resume. And she was like, you, with the skill sets that I know you have and what I've seen you do, like you're a brand architect. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like basically building brands, and usually from like the highest level of the funnel, like usually awareness or even before that, and at inception, and like building a brand before it goes to market. So I would say strategic brand architect, combining that strategy with brand.
Okay. So like, what would you say the difference is between like a brand architect versus a strategist? Is it just more holistic?
Yeah. So I'd say like in brand strategy is kind of like a agency title. So it's like if you've worked at agencies before, they're typically like within creative teams, or like strategy is usually separate from creative, and then strategy does the research and then kind of will like inspire the territories or direction that we should go based on that research, and then brief creative, and then creative will create that. So it really is a very focused, poignant role in the agency like world. But like me, I've worked in-house, and I worked in-house before that, kind of like managing the brand and helping grow the brand through community and CRM, and which is like email and SMS, to like thinking about like social campaigns and other creative concepts and like ways to make a brand really splash in culture, and really being like a culture like advocate. I'd say it's just interesting. I just think all of my skill sets combined over the time, it's like really with all of my skill sets, I'll be able to kind of give you a guide as to how you should build your brand, from like voice and tone to proposition to knowing your consumer and where to reach them, and you're finding your white space in the market, to like actually thinking about how to go to market with that, the comm strategy, the content strategy on your website, all of everything that is kind of like consumer facing and that's needed to define internally, I would be able to build. And also working with people like you and everyone that we've worked with, like all the incredible designers we know, the experiential designers of every type of skill set of design, from production to brand to art directors to creative directors, to really every skill set you need to like make a brand, a brand today, a cool brand today. I feel like I have worked with every single one of those skill sets now. And I think I just understand how they all work together to bring it to life and kind of be that glue. So it's like if I were to, which I'm kind of doing with some agencies now, is like advising the founders or the creative directors on who they should hire and like how and in what steps we should be doing what to get a brand off the ground. So I think like some of it's that glue and that strategic, like operationally also what should we be doing as a creative team to make this happen, that I think is part of that architect piece as well. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So like day to day, I am envisioning you're doing research, but do you have like a research practice or something? Because I'm like, you pull things out, I'm like, where are they coming from? You know? Yeah.
You know, it's so funny. When we worked together, I had some really great tools, which was awesome. I was able to convince, I think it was Accenture. I don't remember who I convinced. Definitely Sue Tran, who was the creative director at the time, was already on board. But she allowed me to get WGSN, which is probably the most expensive tool. It's just like it's a research tool globally. I think that they're out of like London or somewhere in the UK. And they do extensive cultural research and like beyond in different like lanes of industries as well. And they do research on design and color and things like that too. But we had access just to their library of like consumer insight, and their insight is so good. It's like one of my favorite things ever. I don't know if I can mention this on here, but Hillary Cormier, did you ever work with her? She's like a copywriter.
I've been in meetings with her, but no,
Okay, but you know who she is. Mm-hmm. She came from WGSN, and I remember being like, "That is so cool," because she's a copywriter, and also she's pretty like knowledgeable, like in culture and just like research and stuff. And I was like, I just geeked out a little bit when I found out that she works there, because it's so smart the way that they write. It's very tangible, and it also like they give names to these things that are happening in culture that you can't really like make sense of it.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, I can't even think of an example right now, but they just do such a great job. So it could be a really great tool. And then also just like being in culture, actually, I think like there's part of what I'm sure we're going to talk about, but like being a creative and being an artist in like my community here kind of keeps me tapped into like, what are the people doing? What are they responding to? Like what's in right now? What's out? Also be like being really into fashion and just like different, and living in cities like New York and stuff. I've just always been really tapped into culture, and I'm obsessed with humanity and people. So I'm just very observant with that. Like I'll be like, if I meet somebody that I've never met before, a different type of person, and they're telling me what they're interested in or they like, and they're just getting into it. Like I will, like a researcher, they don't even realize that's what I'm doing. I think I just do it naturally. Yeah. But like a researcher, I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, like tell me more about that. Or like, oh, maybe I'll spit something back to them. But I'll be like, this is what I'm noticing. And then if they affirm it, then I'm like, yes, I knew it. And it kind of like builds the confidence of my intuition. So I just feel like over time, it's been almost like 10 years now where I feel like I've been building this like cultural intuition that I feel very, very good about now. So that's part of it too.
So I feel like if it's an intuition, then it's like living up here, right? You know, I feel like I'm not seeing like a spreadsheet or like, I don't know, and like any documentation or anything. Like it's just like an intuitive knowledge. Yeah.
I mean, well, in practice, I do like formal research. So like I'll do like, okay, I'm going to see everything about the consumer, everything about the company, everything about the category. Like I'll do real research like that and then document it and then tell that story for whatever project I'm doing. But in terms of like my own life, I feel like I'm naturally just like a cultural researcher person that I just keep logged in my brain. Sometimes I'll write things down in a note. Actually, that's something an old creative director told me, that they were like, anytime something interesting pops up in your head that you're just kind of like, oh my God, that's like an idea later. Because usually with strategy, it's like an insight is what is the jumping off point for a creative idea. So it's like, if I find an amazing insight, like, this is an old insight, but like third spaces are all dying. So a lot of like younger people are finding ways to create their own third spaces and like new ways, whether it be like hosting dinners at home or like not even going out and drinking as much, but making a coffee shop their third space and like doing more than you would normally do in a coffee shop, like coffee daytime raves and things like that, where there's like no alcohol, things like that, where it's like, oh wow, I can talk to somebody and they can really confirm that in a new way, like the way I'm talking to them. I'm like, okay, cool. And I'll like write that in my phone sometimes if it's that good. But usually I'm just logging it in my brain. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I guess like when I took a look on your LinkedIn a couple of times just to, you know, make sure I like understood all of your background. And I remember talking to you about journalism and photography. Yeah. But I'm curious how, I guess, you got into like brand strategy in general.
Yeah, that's such a great question. I actually have like a lot of people ask me about that because when I went to college, I didn't know that brand strategy was like a job.
It doesn't sound like a major.
Yeah,
you know,
it's not. It's not a major. It's definitely one of those like maybe if you went into advertising, you'd learn about it, but otherwise, I don't know if you would learn about it. And the brand strategy that I do isn't even traditional advertising. So I would say the way I found out about it was that I was doing journalism, realized I hated journalism and the practice of it. I had like a real internship where I was writing like real stories, like feature stories for like a local paper near my hometown for a summer. And I was doing really well, actually. And I did like a feature story on like invasive species in our lakes and all this like stuff that I was pretty proud of. But ultimately I was like, I don't want to do this. And I was like, let me just use my photography skill for a bit, like do some little gigs. I think I wrote for like an indie magazine in Jersey or something. And actually that was some cool experience. I'm actually going to pitch that, or I'm going to email them soon to see if they'll feature one of my songs. But that was like a really cool experience. Like they even sent me to like a beach house show their dream pop band that I just like, I got to get in for free and shoot the whole thing and then write about it and post it on their website digitally. So that was super cool. But then when I decided to just move to New York randomly, I was like, okay, I need to find a way to like make money.
Yeah.
So then I was like, okay, I want to be in fashion. I think I wanted to be in fashion magazines at the time. And I was like, that's not going to happen. Because at the time, fashion magazines were like dying. It was right at the time where people were like, not only is there no money in it, but also it's impossible to get into, and they're like horribly mean and it's terrible culture. So I was just like, okay, fine, I'll just like do fashion. So I was like, I want to work in fashion. I think I was working like in retail at Michael Kors. That's actually what I was doing in my like, I call it like my gap year after I graduated from college. And then before I found like a real job, I was just kind of like gigging and working at Michael Kors at Lenox Mall. And
that's in New York, right?
That's Lenox Mall is in Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
Buckhead. But then I moved to New York and they transferred me to the Flatiron location.
Okay.
Which was a huge deal for me because I didn't have a job lined up when I moved to New York. I just wanted to move. Mm-hmm. And so being able to make money that way was like so incredible. And I think I worked like 40 hours like a week there. And then on top of that, I got this internship at a Parsons incubator startup. Really? So random. I don't even know how I got this. I think I was applying like crazy online, just at everything. And this is the only thing that took a bite, and it was unpaid. So, of course.
Okay. How many hours was it?
20.
Girl.
20 hours a week unpaid for 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a real grind. I would go to, and then at Michael Kors, by the way, this is so crazy. You guys would not believe this. Michael didn't believe in like women not really wearing heels. Like he thought that like, this is what I was told, that women, that, you know, the way his clothes look the best and everything is like when women are wearing heels. Now, mind you, he did make heels that were like really comfortable and like had the platform and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I was wearing heels, like huge heels, selling handbags for like hours. And then I would change my clothes, run down, what street is that? If I'm on Flatiron, you probably, I don't even know.
There's no way I don't.
I'm just trying to like hop back into myself in 2016.
Yeah,
but this is like, I'm working at there. And then if you go like a mile down the same street, then you're at Parsons.
Okay.
So I would just run down there and then do my 20 hours, like, or whatever my hours are that day, maybe 5 hours, like a day or something. Mm-hmm. And I would like just go back and do that every day for 6 months. And then that's what actually got me my first like marketing job. Like that was my first like, I can do an office like type of marketing job. Like I'm experienced in that way. And she wrote me this amazing like referral letter and like whatever. And then I started working at this jewelry tech company as a marketing associate.
Did you say jewelry tech?
Jewelry tech. This is like the Apple Watch is out, but like nothing else is. And this was like super innovative at the time.
Okay.
For this lady, for the founder. This was a big deal for her. But yeah, it was like gemstones. That was like a Fitbit, basically. It was like a Fitbit gemstone like brand, and rings. It was called Ringly. It's not here anymore. It's been gone for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had this moment.
But basically that's how I got into like marketing. So I was a marketing assistant actually in that role. And then I think I was in that role for like 6 or 7 months and the company was already going under, but I made such an impression with my marketing director that she was like, I found you another job somewhere else. Like I'm gonna like take care of you type of thing because you were so great here and everything. She's awesome. Her name's Jessamine, the bomb.
Okay.
She got me a job at Lively as a marketing assistant again. And then I worked my way up at Lively. And long story short, it's just it's a long story. So I'm not going to bore you with the whole thing. But that's really where I honed my career, was at Lively, which was this women's startup that was like women's wear. It was like bras and underwear. And I did copywriting there. I did owning brand stuff, writing all the campaigns and coming up with the ideas for new product launches, owned email, all of our life cycle stuff, SMS. I like ran this company with like maybe like 5 other women that were kind of like at my level. And we all were in the same little room in New York and we just built this brand from like the ground up.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like by the time I was promoted maybe 3 or 4 times working there. And by the time I was ready to go, I was a content strategist.
Okay.
Because at that point, really what I was like a brand marketing manager, but I was doing so much more than just that. I really was owning the strategy of like content and how we told the story of Lively. Not visually, but like words and storytelling for the brand. And I really was like the owner of that at that time. And so I started asking people like, what is strategy? Because I was trying to get promoted to a marketing director or a marketing manager or something. And then they were like, you know what? You're not just a marketing manager, you're a content strategist. And I thought that they were trying to like mess with me. I was like, no, because this place was very toxic too sometimes. Yeah. So I would have to like print out a whole reason why I should be promoted. It would be like pages long with like my salary that I think I should be making at the end and my title. I did this several times, and in the end I was like, they were like, we're going to make you a content strategist and we are going to give you a pay raise. And I was like, strategy just felt, I was like, that sounds like you just don't want to give me the promotion I asked for. But then I realized after asking around, I had never had exposure to agency world. And so I was like, they were like, oh, actually it was the art director there that I'm so close friends with now, Anita Suka. She was like, yeah, actually, she's like, this is your skill set. And actually brand strategy is really like what you're doing. And so then I started applying for those roles, and it was fairly easy to get a brand strategy role because of the skill set that I had.
I feel like sometimes it can really take you far when someone is like, hey, you're good at this, and like this is the role you're gonna have, and you're like, I don't know, they kind of like lead you into that.
Yeah, I was thankful actually in hindsight. But at the time it felt cheap. Like they were trying not to like give me what I wanted. Yeah.
Okay, and one of the reasons why I was interested in chatting with you is because, you know, like I've seen you speak, but I also know that you started launching music, or I don't know, like I guess tell me more about going into that. What made you start making music? I think I remember you saying that you've been doing music for a while, but you just started publishing it.
Yeah.
But
I feel like, you know what's funny is I probably had just started actually like producing and making my own songs and like putting music out under my artist name. But I have been doing performing and singing and stuff my whole life. Okay. So that's probably like the mix of it, where it's like I did theater and a bunch of like different like musicals and things growing up, and I was always like the theater kid. I was in jazz a cappella choir, competitive choirs, competitive theater, like I did all of that stuff, Glee Club in college, and I just always, music is such a huge part of my family. It's just like so embedded in even my bloodline. Like my dad's side of the family, they're all like, my grandfather and all his siblings, they're all like famous jazz musicians.
Really?
Yeah. So it's like that was a huge part of just like my upbringing. Like all of our family reunions were really like jazz festivals, it felt like.
That's so sick.
Yeah, that was cool. I mean, not like festivals and like, but basically it was like every member of the family would get up and perform, and then they would jam at the end of the night, and everybody had to perform something. Even like me and my sister and my cousins, we would perform dances to like Britney Spears and things like that. But it's like you had to like perform something. Or it was kind of like you didn't have to, but we wanted to. Everybody in my family was so into that. So yeah, so that's where this kind of like comes from. And I just love music. I'm just like a psycho music head, like truly crazy. Like I when I was young, I'd be like, I couldn't have any friends or any like boyfriend or anything like that if they didn't like get me musically. Otherwise, like, you're not gonna get me like if you don't like my music. I was like really intense.
But like your husband is also a musician, so I feel like
you're like, actually, you never stopped doing that. Yeah, no, I'm actually crazy now. Yeah, I'm a crazy person. So
no.
Yeah, music is like this, it's like I have my professional self, and I've been trying to like blend those two sides of not just the professional self, but just like blend my all the sides of myself in general. Cause it's just been,
oh really?
Yeah, I feel like it can be kind of like challenging, cause one side of myself is like, yeah, this like, I probably would be doing music solely if that made money in the way that it needed to or whatever. But I think, you know, moving to New York and just realizing that survival is so serious. Like I think like I found a way to get really good in my career, but music is always really like part of like who I am at my core. Yeah. So I'm always just trying to like, you know, you are all these things, but it's like, how do you also blend this together as you get older? But yeah, so I started, anyway, when I was in New York, I didn't actually make any music, but I was at my church, and he was the music director there, and he was playing guitar, and I was a backup vocalist singing on stage. So like in this type of modern church vibe, it's like a band. So we're like singing in a band together basically. So that was cool, but that was all I was doing musically up until that point. And then when I moved to LA, I started actually like producing a little bit in GarageBand, and then moved to Ableton, and then just started like making beats and like making music. And then singing is like my first instrument. So then I started figuring out how to sing over that stuff. And then I would put out a couple songs on SoundCloud, and it started like picking up, and I started getting my confidence. And then over time I like started making more like refined tracks.
Why do you think you started when you moved to LA?
Oh, that's a whole thing.
That's a whole thing?
Yeah. I think I was scared of like, I don't know, I don't think I had the confidence yet. When I was in New York, I was so like, New York is a crazy city. Like, you would think that being in New York would inspire you to be more creative because there's so many creatives in New York, but actually like you can be so easily distractible in New York. It can pull you in whatever way. Like if you even give something an inch, it can like suck you like a vacuum. It's true. Like it's just like it's a hamster wheel. It's a roller coaster, and you don't even realize like you're on it. It's very, very interesting. That's why I love New York. That energy is like addictive, but it also can kind of take you away from like your purpose if you kind of like just let something take you. So work can just take you, or different things like that. So I feel like I just wasn't focusing on, it's like I kind of left my music self back in like high school and college and stuff. And then when I moved to New York, it was like make money, get a job, like try to have fun, try to just like make that happen and get successful and stand on my own 2 feet so I don't have to go back to the Midwest. So with that, you're thinking about that stuff. When I moved to LA, it was like a breath of fresh air. Like I felt like I could see for the first time, and I wasn't like on this roller. It was like being on a roller coaster for 6 years and then getting off.
Okay.
And I was like, whoa, like I'm not like on the roller coaster anymore. I can actually like sit still and see what I want. And I was like, wow, I have time to like think about who I am and what I want to do. And I just let myself do it. I also think I was a little bit intimidated too by my husband. He was like a really like successful DJ when we were in New York together, and he's an amazing musician. He's an amazing guitarist. And I think when we first got married, I think I was just a little bit intimidated by like stumbling into learning to be an artist when he already was a full-fledged one. So yeah, if you ever talk to him, you should ask him about that, because it was a really funny, I was like scared to sing in front of him in the beginning. Yeah, it was so funny. And now it's like we do everything together. He helps me finish all my songs. Like he mixes and masters all my songs. He's like my biggest advocate now, but that was like 5 years ago. Yeah, I was like, I could barely even like sing or do anything like that around him.
Yeah.
So
you feel like you gravitated towards him partially because of music? Like it feels like back to what we were saying about you know, being choosy with people based on music.
Quite choosy. Yeah. I think like that was the first time we ever hung out. I invited him to see this band called A Beacon School that was at Baby's All Right, which is a very like classic, like, place like in Brooklyn that you go. And this band was so good. I love their guitars. I love like the chorus on their guitars. It's very like nostalgic, but also kind of like dreamy and dream poppy, and with a little bit of synth in it. This good band. And I was like, if he likes this, then like we're gonna get along. So I didn't know what his music taste was. And I sent it to him, and then I was just like, let's meet at this place. They're playing tonight. And he was like, oh, I guess I'm free. And we go there. And so the fact that he was even into that music and was like, we could connect over that was a big deal to me, like at first. And then obviously being on the worship team together, doing rehearsals on Thursday nights and singing in that way and being on stage and performing together, I think like that was a huge part of our relationship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you said that you, I guess you're trying to merge your creative identities together. And I'm curious if you feel like your identity has shifted since you started, I guess both, like music. Well, like when do you feel like you started music? Like 2, 3, like if your family,
literally, like like I feel like I was singing out the womb. Like I have no idea when I started music, but I know that my influence, I know totally where all those things come from. And like there's so many people that influence my music taste, but I think particularly my dad, that's like one of our biggest connections, and he's an 80s like guy. I think he was born, my mom and him were both born in 65. So they were like teenagers in college in the 80s. So they're just like, that's their thing. And I grew up on not just like Cyndi Lauper and you know, or a Whitney Houston type, or even like the Tribe Called Quest and like that type of like rap and hip hop that was out at the time. But also my dad loves like the Smiths and goth music and The Cure. And like, so we just constantly were playing all of these different like 80s genres. Also too, like my uncle too was just very influential in my dad's music taste, which was handed down to me. But also he was like a man that was like in New York in the 80s at the time and super cool. Like he was super stylish and stuff like that. He's a gay man and he's just the coolest. Like truly, I thought that he was so cool growing up, and he loved bands like the Pet Shop Boys and like these other bands that were a little bit more of like that dance club culture that you would find in like London or in New York, like back in the 90s. And so that was a huge like influence on my music taste as well, which is like kind of random. But then also I was raised by my uncle for a bit, who was like a teenager at the time, and he loved grunge and was like a goth. Okay. So yeah, so I was like, my uncle loved Nirvana. He also loved more dreamier, like he loved like UK bands like Oasis and yeah, it's just like, there's so many bands I could list, but he was very much like my influence when it came to my rock taste. So blending like that ethereal, like 80s sound, also with like 90s, like Cranberries ethereal, like kind of sound with like grunge. I think that that's like a good, like I was just very like emo, basically. Yeah, I think that was kind of my taste, or my creative taste when I was young. I also was like, yeah, definitely an emo kid too. So I listened to a lot of like screamo, a lot of like metalcore, a lot of like, yeah, just like a lot of like emo type of like rock music, like anything you would find at Warped Tour. Okay. Yeah, I was like very into that at the time, dressed the part, looked the part, I was super into it. And so yeah, definitely that was like my influence and aesthetic when I was young. Now I'm much more, man, I think there's no genre of music I haven't touched, but I'm really into electronic music now. And not electronic music as in, and this is a part of my upbringing too, but not like tech house or like the stuff that was popular at like festivals in college. I did go to those, but more like Detroit techno and Chicago house, because I grew up in Detroit. So that was a huge part of my dad's taste as well. And so it almost was kind of like nostalgic to me when I found it again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can see that.
Yeah. And really there's so much like Black influence in electronic music and discovering it through that vantage point. And my husband shared a lot of this with me too. And also like UK garage and even drum and bass and a lot of the like video game music that we grew up listening to. The dots started connecting for me, and I was like, whoa, this is like so my genre as well. So a lot of my music basically combines those two things. It's going to be like this like ethereal 80s type of vibe mixed with and like a little bit of 90s R&B too, because I'm a Black girl in the 90s.
Why not?
Born in 93. Let's go. Yeah. So yeah, those mixed together, but then there's always going to be a lot of that electronic drums influence.
As you were talking, I was thinking about how, you know, you're really into music, you're really into culture. Do you feel like music was your entry point to culture? Because it seems like you know a lot of the background of, you know, why this music is like this and like where it's from and like that kind of thing.
I never thought about that. Yeah, I think so. I think that definitely would be like my biggest entry point to music, because it actually takes me into spaces where I get to meet really unique types of people. Yeah. And I'm really obsessed with like preserving like underground culture and like niche music culture, because it matters so much in terms of people's identity. Like even thinking about like back in the 90s, if you call yourself goth versus punk versus like all these other things, emo versus whatever, I just loved how people took on these identities of like, no, I'm different from you. Like I'm this is what this means. And I just think that that's so, I love that. Like I'm very, very obsessed with like people, how they identify themselves and what they attach to in culture, where they feel seen. And I think I'm always just wanting to see people. And I love categorizing people in that way, not to put them into a box, but just to kind of really understand the vantage point of where they come from. So yeah, music definitely like lets you have a playground with that. Yeah. Because there's so many subgenres and all music influences each other. So I love that. Also fashion. I'm super into fashion. And I think that was a huge vantage point for me too, into culture and just understanding different cultures.
Super interesting. I feel like music and fashion, so it's going to sound kind of weird, but I feel like every culture around the world has like music and they have fashion. They also have bread, but that's
yes.
like not.
Oh my God, I love food also.
Food, yeah, okay.
Yes.
You like food too.
Love food, a huge foodie.
Okay. So I feel like, I guess, are there other ways that you keep a temperature on culture? Like other practices that you have or anything like that?
Yeah, I think like I definitely love to be actually like in different cultures. So I love to go to different restaurants, try a bunch of different types of like different cuisine. I'll even study up on that stuff. Like my husband even bought me like a wafu cooking cookbook.
What's wafu?
It's like Japanese cooking.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I was like, I just kind of got into that where I'm like, I love delineating between like, no, this is what makes this Japanese and this is what makes this Korean. Like I love like understanding those differences. So I'll like be inquisitive about like ingredients and things like that. My sister's really into that too. I also like to read like Substack and things like that too. There's like kind of like that long form like video on YouTube or even Substack, which is more long form. When I'm actually practicing like from a brand strategy standpoint, I use that a lot. It keeps me like on culture quicker because sometimes you can look at things macro and be like, macro, this is kind of what's happening and how consumers are changing because of macro things that are affecting culture. But sometimes there's little mini things that are always happening. It seems to be like flipping every like 3 months or something like that. And I love keeping track of that stuff too. People would say that's more trend based stuff, but I'd still say that like trends still tell a bigger story of like what people are into and what they aren't. So I love to keep tabs on like saving posts and things like on Instagram where, for example, like, is it called Pathetic? I think that's the name of the account. There's an account called Pathetic and they love to talk about different like niche cultural things or like this kind of starter pack or like when you see this, you know that you're interacting with this type of bro or whatever. And that's just like so funny to me because usually I'm like, oh, I saw that. It's basically confirms what I see in real life. So I'm like in culture and then I see how culture confirms it and I'll save those things and be like, oh, I knew it. I was right. Like martinis are so in right now.
As you were speaking, I guess something that came to mind is a lot of designers will, like, I've heard people say, like, you know, trends are exhausting. Like, if you're executing visual styles, you know, things go in and out really fast.
Yeah.
Do trends tire you out? It seems like they almost give you energy where you're like, it's more things to learn, I guess.
Yeah, I love trends. I think that, again, I'm really big on identity and authenticity and truth. So if a trend speaks to you, like truthfully in your authentic self, then yeah, you should like try it, investigate it, and like push it to the limits. I think that that's like super fun for me. And then leave the trends that don't resonate with you at all, because that's where it becomes, I think there's like commercial trends for the sake of like capitalism, and then there's like trends that come from culture pushing culture forward.
Yeah,
they definitely play into each other for sure. I mean, capitalism is culture almost basically these days, right? But I think it's really great to separate the two. Like I think a lot of the time people say like, oh, I hate trends, because it's usually just like a capitalistic, nobody has a mind of their own and they're just jumping onto something because it's popular. But that's not always what trends means. Trends reveal where people's hearts are at, where people's minds are at, what people are pushing towards versus what people are rejecting. And if you look closely, it tells you kind of what people want. Like, for example, all of the nostalgia dressing that we've been doing, all the early 2000s dressing and all of that. I mean, like, we all want to go back to simpler times because today is horrible. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, you can, anytime you see like a trend where it's like, oh my gosh, like this girl is wearing, like girls are putting the clips back in their hair and it looks just like when we were kids, like there's actually something really meaningful about that. And if someone wants to jump in on it and do it, it probably is because it brings them joy. And there's a deep reason why that is. It's not just like, oh, I want to be on a trend and it's cute. So yeah, I find trends fascinating for sure and inspiring, but to a point, for sure, to a point. Yeah.
Okay, we have just a little bit more time, so I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and then we're going to go to the rapid fire.
Ooh, fun. Okay, cool.
Okay. I'm curious how you want your work to impact people, like whether it's your brand strategy work or your music, or you're looking to combine those. Or I'm sure you use your brand strategy with your music because music is culture, right?
Yeah, I do. But it's so funny. It really is like different parts of my brain because brand strategy really is strategy. Like it is so different. I can do creative stuff, but I think whenever I have to exercise my creative brain and then whenever I have to exercise my strategy brain, they actually are like two different things.
Yeah.
My husband and I were talking about this, and you ever played the game Fire Emblem?
No.
It's a video game that's like a very old school type of video game. It's like a turn-based style game, which is actually how Pokemon was in the beginning too. And basically like it's like playing a game of chess, and you like choose different, it's a long story, but bottom line is that I use my strategy brain when playing that game. And it's like I can tell the same brain that I use to do strategy for brands is the same brain that turns on when I'm playing Fire Emblem. It's like that's and you could see both those things. It's like, oh, that's like a creative, quirky, like whatever thing, but it's like but it really is a different brain for me versus like when I'm playing dress up with my clothes, or when I'm making a beat or something like that, or when I'm singing, really, when I'm like singing, that's a totally different side of my brain. So actually sometimes I have a hard time blending the two. Actually, I've had, when I've done music videos and stuff with friends, I have them do the art direction and the creative and everything. Because I can't even like, I can tell them like, when I made this song, this vibe was in my head, but I need them to do everything creative and strategy wise, because I can't, it's hard for me. I'd rather be in the artist brain.
Like it like kind of splits you into like two different headspaces almost?
Yes, completely.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, my artist self is different from like my strategy self. Of course, I'm a whole human and I'm one person, so they all live in the same girl, but it's like, they're definitely different, and I'm trying to find actually how to leverage my skills and help the other side, but they definitely feel like different for sure.
Yeah, I mean, also like if you have an artist name too, so I feel like there's, I guess there's even further identification, right?
Definitely, yeah. Even with this interview, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I'm a creative, and we're talking about two sides. Okay, I was like, and Era is me, but I'm like, okay, is Era being interviewed or like Erin being interviewed? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's like it's both, but I guess with different questions, I have to like tap into different sides.
Okay, that's super interesting.
Yeah, it makes me sound like I'm bipolar. It's not that serious, but it's not that deep. But it really is just kind of like, oh, okay, like this is something that Era knows.
You're like, that's
not even bipolar. That's multiple personality disorder. Get it right.
Okay, so like I'm curious if you have any dream project, or I guess like ways that you would love to see like either of your practices evolve over the next few years.
Yeah, well, I'm freelancing now, like on the brand strategy side, and it's been so great. I like working in this kind of like advisory role of like helping either agencies, like agency founders, or brands grow with their clients. So it's like telling them like, this is what we should be doing with them. This is how we should be working with them. This is who you need to hire to make that happen. And then doing something splashy and cool with new brands. Especially like up and coming brands is more my style, or net new brands versus like, I've worked with like Coca-Cola and Adidas and like these bigger ones, but it's like they already have these super established brands that have been established for a while. Where brand strategy shines is like helping somebody like be the catalyst of like this superstar brand out of nowhere. That's like would ultimately be like my dream. Would be really cool. So I hope I get to work on a project like that this year. That'd be sweet. And then in terms of like music, what's so funny is like I do not desire like fame for real. Like a lot of people in LA really, really do. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that in terms of you want to be like recognized for your work, and that's great. Yeah. I don't really value that as much as I care about putting out good music that I'm proud of.
The craft, essentially.
I really care about that. Yeah. Because it's also a representation of like me. It's kind of like a life's work thing, just like happening earlier in my life. But it's like, I'm going to get better over time, but I really need the music, because music is so personal to me. I really needed to reflect all of I'm a very emotional person also. So I needed to really be so authentic to me, and that it can only be as authentic basically as where my skill level's at. The more skill I have, the more I'll be able to execute what I'm trying to say.
I know exactly what you mean. I guess like the things I do are different, but it's interesting because I feel like with design, like part of why being a junior designer is so painful is because you have all these ideas and then you're executing them. And a part of it, a part of not knowing if your work is good or not is like, is it the execution or is it the idea? And like, I feel like when you can get both at the same level, then you can just vibe it out. And I feel like creating things takes like way less energy. Like I think it takes like a fifth of the energy now as it did when I started.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. So, and it's like more fun.
Yeah, it's way more fun.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Yeah. It's like with music, I feel like now at this point, it's less, I used to be a little bit intimidated, like coming forth into Ableton, like, okay, what are we going to create now? Like, and I think like, while it was fun and free, it still made me feel like, oh, I can't communicate the idea in my head.
Yeah.
I'm still getting there, but like when I first started making music, it was a little bit intimidating to come towards like Ableton or like start creating a song, because I would be like, I have the whole song in my head, but it doesn't mean that I can execute it with the skill level I have right now. And that used to be kind of frustrating for me. And then now I have a little bit more skill. I still have so much to learn, to be honest. And like, again, that's kind of like what my dream would be, is to be able to get to a place where this is exactly how it sounds in my head and I'm realizing it right now. Like I'm seeing it, I'm hearing it. It sounds exactly how it was in my brain. I know that big artists today, they can do that. Like if it's like a Pharrell Williams or like anybody else, they probably hear a beat or hear a song in their head, and then they have the resources and the skill to just make it. And so I'd love to be able to get to that place where I can create a body of work, an album, I want to put out an EP this year actually, but it's just going to be a collection of the work I've done so far that I'm proud of. But the next era, if you will, is like, is doing something more cohesive that's also tells a through line story and kind of like reflects the skills I have now. So it should be a level up, hopefully. But,
okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Okay, I have rapid fire questions. I could pick your brain all day, but we only have so much time.
Yeah.
Okay, are you ready?
Oh my goodness, I'm ready.
Okay. What's on your desk right now?
There's like a toad, like, Nintendo toad, like amoeba or amiibo or whatever for gaming. I have him on my desk right now.
That's it?
Oh, I have a lot on my desk. I have him. I have like a star sticker, which is so random. I have a candle, a little like round bulb light. What else? I have my laptop, and I have my MIDI keyboard, and then I have my mic right here, and what else? And a water bottle, and usually like some matcha or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What's a piece of tech you can't live without?
So I'm not very techie, to be very honest with you, but probably my laptop or I think my MIDI keyboard. No, probably my mic.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a piece of tech. It's a good mic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Probably my mic.
What's the best creative advice you've ever been given?
Ooh. Something I learned recently, I don't know if it's the best I've ever been given, but it was really good.
Okay.
Is that it's like, if you don't have a shot, you don't have an idea. Which basically means, I learned this from a guy that was like a leader at Nike, Jordan, for a while. And he said, basically like with your experiential concept or your idea, because you do a lot of creative ideation and trying to do like the coolest concept ever. He's like, you don't have an idea if you don't have the shot. So like the photography shot.
Oh.
So like, unless you have the sickest looking shot ever, you don't have an idea. Because really today, everything is about selling a concept or something that happens IRL. You have to be able to sell it on social and make it seem cool. So if it doesn't look cool on social, if it doesn't look cool in the picture, it's not cool.
I see.
Which is so true. Like for any brand strategist or creative or whatever out there, like if you're trying to do an experiential concept or anything IRL, if you can't get the content right for that concept, it's almost as if it never happened. Because basically you're doing it for a small group of people. You can only get so many people in a room, but if you want to go viral, you need to be able to share that experience on social where other people can get it instantly, and the shot is going to help them get it of why it was so sick. So if you think about like, the wine bar Cafe Tondo here that's really popular. It's a really popular wine bar. It's very mixy, sceney vibe over there in Chinatown underneath a train. Yeah, and so like you can just the shot of that just makes it seem like the coolest place in town, whether it's cool or not. Actually, like that's the shot of it being under the train with the red lights. It just like that's the story, and now everybody wants to come.
I want to ask so many more questions about that, but I'm
sorry. I know this is rapid fire. Let's go.
And lastly, what is something you wish you could tell your younger self?
I would tell my very emotional younger self that like all the things you are exactly who you need to be unique, special, to have all the things you want to have in life. People will love you for exactly who you are, and just like, yeah, don't, your intuition is right. And like everything that you're thinking right now is right. Just keep doing that.
All right. Cool. Is there anything you want to, like, any like handles or anything you want to throw out?
Oh, yeah. Well, you can follow me at era.mp3. So it's ERAA.
Okay.
.mp3 on social. And you can follow that you can also listen to my music on Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, with that same handle.
Cool. Thank you for chatting with me.
Yeah, thank you. This was so great.